This is the second part of the Road to Civil War slideshow. Another event that led to the Civil War was the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Act was part of the Compromise of 1850. The Compromise of 1850 was in response to California being admitted as a free state. This was due to the fact that California included land that was both above and below the line marked by the Compromise of 1820 to determine whether a state was free or slave. One significant part of the Compromise of 1850 was the Fugitive Slave Act. It required slaves to be returned to their owners if they escaped to the North. It also stated that the federal government was responsible for returning these slaves. This law would be a major source of anger for abolitionists, people who wanted to end slavery. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Written by Harriet Beecher Stowe in 1850, Uncle Tom's Cabin is a fictional story that details the difficulties of slave life for a caring slave named Tom. It becomes a very popular book in the North and overseas in England among people who are against slavery. It influences more people to believe that slavery is wrong and something that should not be tolerated anywhere in the United States. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. Based on the Compromise of 1820, the Kansas and Nebraska territories should have been free states. However, the Kansas-Nebraska Act changed that. It allowed citizens of a new state to vote to decide if it should be free or slave. Kansas was likely to become a state soon after this act was passed in 1854. The Kansas-Nebraska Act law led many pro-slavery and anti-slavery individuals to move to Kansas in hopes of that state entering the Union on the side they support. Before Kansas could become a state, it turned violent. Bleeding Kansas, or Bloody Kansas, was a nickname for violence in the late 1850s and early 1860s in Kansas, before the Civil War began. This fighting was between pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups in Kansas. Some historians call this the start of the Civil War. The Dred Scott case. This landmark 1857 Supreme Court case occurred when Dred Scott, a slave, attempted to sue for his freedom because he lived for many years in free states in the North. The Supreme Court denied his request, stating that African Americans are not citizens and have no right to sue in court. This case was a victory for the slave-owning South, but served to further divide the country between those who wanted to keep slavery and those who wanted to abolish slavery. John Brown's raid. John Brown was an abolitionist. He was willing to use violence to rid the country of slavery. He was involved in the fighting in Bloody Kansas. In 1859, he attempted to lead a slave revolt in Virginia that involved seizing the U.S. Armory at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. The raid failed. John Brown was captured. He would be tried and executed for treason not long after the raid. But his attempt was looked at in the South as an attempt by the North to use force to end slavery, and he was admired by some in the North who respected his courage to try to stop slavery. Election of 1860. The 1860 general election had four major candidates running for office, showing how divided the country was. All four candidates received electoral votes, but Republican candidate Abraham Lincoln received the majority of electoral votes despite failing to win any Southern or slaveholding state. Lincoln's Republican Party was a new party, and many Southerners feared Lincoln and the Republicans would try to end slavery. In the months between Lincoln's election and his inauguration to actually take the office of the president, Southern states began to secede or leave the Union. The United States was no longer united. Civil war was about to begin.